Okay, are you ready?
I think so.
Okay, cool. Let's
How
start.
kind. Alright, here we go.
So I'm going to need probably a minute or two just to get an idea of how you play the game, since I haven't really watched you play very much. I actually think you could have gotten that second up air for what it's worth.
Yeah, I know that. I definitely could have.
Yeah. Ooh. But I just kind of want to get an idea of what I'm looking at. If you have any random questions, you can stop me. But usually my first lesson with people, I take about 2 minutes to watch their gameplay.
That's fine.
Nice. Oh, you could have gone for it. How old was this set, by the way?
It's a few months old, I think.
2 months? Okay, so not too old.
Yeah, it was in early February.
Okay, okay.
And I played him not in tournament, but again in friendlies at the recent tournament. I've made some like changes to my game plan against Peach, but they're mainly just like basic things like I'll use run off, double jump up air to catch Peach's up B parasol, fast fall to ledge, and also he does pretty much all Peaches do where if you hit their shield as Falcon at least, they pretty much always just roll away. And I was not reading it at all in this set, but I focused more on that recently.
That makes sense. I actually found I was giving a lesson to a Falcon student, and he was very, very new, so I was teaching him how to deal with on-shield situations. I actually figured out a sick way to counter roll backwards that you might be interested in. There's actually a timing, so you know how you can do nair dash back without getting shield grabbed, even if it's unspaced?
Yeah.
So you can do unspaced nair, dash back, but normally to reactively punish shield grab, you dash quite far back, and then you dash forward, and then you just JC grab on reaction, right? What you can actually do is do a short dash back that barely dodges their range, and then dash forward. And the reactable window to punish shield grab is still within range where you can pivot grab them when you run past them, but if they roll away from you, you can actually react. So there's actually a timing where literally you can do an unspaced aerial, dash back, dash forward. If they shield grab, you pivot grab, and if they roll away, you just continue to run and grab them, and it's all fully reactable if you have the right.
If they did like a late grab, wouldn't that grab your dash in though?
Absolutely, but I think most Peaches do not late grab in that situation.
Yeah. Also,
and of course, it's all mix-ups.
Could you also do? I haven't tested it. I'm just thinking about this on the spot. But maybe like dash back, like very close pivot just outside of grab range, and then maybe you could react.
I don't know if you can catch the roll away on reaction.
Yeah.
I personally find that roll away is very hard to punish from any character unless you're already moving towards it. So you could experiment with that, but I think the dash forward is very valuable in that case.
Okay.
You probably could do it if that's the only thing you were looking for, though. I do think that. Just a random thought, though, that I thought you might find interesting.
Yeah.
But, anyway, so let's talk. I'm going to go back to the beginning. I definitely have some thoughts. So let's watch. The beginning is fine. I see you're reacting well. You're watching the ranges you're at, which is good.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't really using up airs to contest him. I was trying to stuff him when he was in the air with short up nairs, and then he pretty much abused this by doing float nairs just over the height where it was effective, and I never really adapted to it in this set.
That makes sense to me. So the beginning actually starts off quite fine. But then, as we watch more, I start to notice... So, for example, here, what were you going for when he get up attacked your shield, and you got the power shield? So watch this.
I have no idea.
Okay, and I don't have any idea either, which I find interesting because I actually noticed a trend where I think this is very possibly what happens, and it might not be. I think you have so many ideas labbed out and so many things you know you can do that there are frequently situations where you don't actually play confidently off the thing you earned. So watching that now, it's clear you could have at minimum shield grabbed it. Really, you could have also stomped out of shield, right?
I think maybe. Okay, yeah. I think I was going. Originally I was thinking, okay, I'm shielding. I'm going to grab the get up attack, but then like the thought of, oh, I might not be spaced properly, popped into my head.
Maybe
so then I just jumped then, so I could maybe do an aerial or whatever. But then I just messed up.
And I think that's a good thing to understand why you messed that up. And it's not a big deal that you messed it up as long as you understand why. So what you need to start thinking about in terms of view of the game is once you notice an issue, ask yourself, it's not very useful to just note that something was bad. You need to note, first of all, note that it's bad. Ask yourself why it's bad. Sure, that's easy for you, obviously. But then the next step is, step 3, which some people skip, is recognizing the situations that led up to it that might have made you do the bad thing. Because if you don't recognize the situation, then the next time you're in it, you won't be able to fix it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So don't just recognize if I shield Peach get up attack, I can grab or stomp. It's more complicated than that. It's like, look at the movement you did beforehand. Look what led to the get up attack. Try to actually understand the situations leading up to your thought process becoming jumbled or poor. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think so.
And then the last thing is not only recognizing the situation, but then ask yourself, okay, once I recognize the situation, what was my thought process? And you kind of did this for me, which was great. You should ask yourself, why did I actually do that thing that I know is good? And try to find ways to correct the thought process. So for example, if you were worried about the spacing, maybe that's something where you should have just recognized ahead of time. Going into it, you shouldn't do something unless you're already confident in the spacing, for example. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or maybe stomp out of shield would work regardless of spacing, right?
Yeah. Actually, I think maybe I might have been hit by the back hit of his get up attack, which would make. I'm not sure how how good the stomp out of shield is then. I'm sure it still works. Maybe I have not actually tested that. It'd be a lot harder, and I haven't actually tested that. I'm not even sure if it would work. I imagine so. Actually, it looks like I have enough time.
Yeah, I agree. It looks like you have enough time. So, for example, one possible solution is when you do something, just learn to be confident in it, regardless, because you wouldn't have shielded there if you didn't think it was the right thing to do. So you could have just grabbed.
Yeah.
But then also maybe you can come up with solutions that are non-spacing specific, so you don't have to think about it. Maybe you can think about again why you thought the spacing might have been bad in the first place.
I think it's. I'm sorry. I think it's because my natural response to mistack is crouch. So if I'm there in time and I crouch in front of their mistack, then I'm fine with. I don't need to think about it then. Like I wouldn't have done this. I likely wouldn't have done this mess up where I did the empty short hop because I've done it enough times and I know what to do there. But I think maybe I was afraid that I didn't have enough time to get to crouch in front of him, so then I shielded instead, and then I'm not as used to that situation.
That totally makes sense. So then you can ask yourself, start thinking about the situation where you shield it and start visualizing different spacings and timings in your head. Do you feel like you reacted to this get-up attack, or was it a guess, Those are things you need to ask yourself, because if it was a reaction, then you can be confident that on reaction, if you shield in time, you look at the spacing and you tell yourself, oh, well, I was clearly in range if I'm reacting at the spacing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you can kind of build this thought process up in your head. So there, for example, you specifically went for a knee that was slightly overshot. So that's actually quite a specific situation. So you can keep that in mind. That might actually happen for spacies quite a bit, for example, where if you slightly misspace your knee and then you have to turn around and they're right behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is, if you go through that full thought process, I think you'll be able to fix your things a lot better. And the only reason I talked about it so much isn't that this is a big deal, but because it actually happens quite a few times. So let's keep watching. Random thought. How do you feel about that interaction where you got grabbed after going for the jab knee?
Oh, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's worth thinking about that. In close ranges, most peaches won't do this, but a lot of very high-level peaches seem to have this intuition that they can throw out moves at a certain range versus Falcon, and it frequently stuffs him. So, for example, Armada will anti-air jab unexpectedly, or some peaches will nair, or I guess Vanity Angel will grab. I would say bad peaches tend to spam down tilts and down smash in situations where Falcon has enough time to jump, but good peaches will notice that they can throw out moves that hit higher up, and it tends to work. So I don't know if that's something you've thought about much, but
I imagine jab would be the superior anti-air, because if I had slightly delayed my fast fall or my jump or whatever, then I would have jumped over his grab. I imagine.
Yeah, I agree. So maybe that's something you can consider, that in close range interactions with Peach, you can consider your fast fall timing and your horizontal spacing a bit more.
Yeah.
So cool. Just something to think about in terms of how you view the game and noticing these things and how we can take even the smallest interaction, which, you know, most people would watch this and think nothing of it. They'd be like, okay, well, you got grabbed. And you were like, you know, I don't know. But I'm trying to show you how I would look at this and then extrapolate on it to thinking about, okay, well, maybe better peaches will stuff me for jumping. So how do I deal with that? I like your solution of maybe not fast falling, or maybe just drift a little further back so you're more horizontally spaced, or maybe you just need to choose different areas. For example, maybe you could do retreating up air or rising stomp and then retreat with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Stomp makes sense, as if they do go for jab, then you can pull over it with your obviously the stomp moves your legs up.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, sometimes that won't work depending on the timing, but, you know, we can extrapolate that to, in general, maybe you need to think about your frame advantage in up-close interactions more, because how much frame advantage you have significantly affects how your hurt box contortion, how effective it is, you know?
Yeah.
It's like the whole stomping over an up tilt with Fox thing. That works if you have time, and if you don't have time, it's terrible. And what bad Falcons frequently do is they just always try to stomp without actually recognizing frame advantage, right?
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand what situation you're talking about.
Oh, so like, you know, in like Fox Falcon, many Falcons will try to stomp to beat up tilt. Like they'll stomp out of shield and it'll go over Fox's up tilt, right?
Yeah.
Or like around it or something.
Oh,
right?
yeah, around it. Yeah, you can get around like double up tilt by stomping and drifting so that it hits after the second up tilt. Yeah.
But this is also common when like a Fox nairs on your shield or Falco nairs on your shield, right?
Yeah.
And like for some Fox players, they learn that, okay, if I nair and just spam up tilt after, it beats Falcon jumping. But then some Falcon players, you know, depending on the timing, like you might try that versus SUJ, but he recognizes how safe the nair was, so he knows if he had time to stomp around the up tilt or not, you know?
Or you could wave dash out a shield and whiff punish the up tilt.
Of course. And I mean, there's a ton of things. But do you get the concept I'm pointing out? Like, how much frame advantage you have significantly affects how much time you have to drift or how much your body curls up and stuff like that. So this is something you need to be generalizing to other situations.
Okay.
You know, I don't really care that you lost this specific interaction, but this applies to every matchup in some form or another. So let's keep watching now. And I think you'll notice a lot of the similar things that will happen in a bit. So let's see this. So let's talk about this. So you messed up your knee, and that's fine. But let's talk about what happens after, actually. So what do you do after kneeing? You run forward, right? And then he floats out of it and hits you?
Yeah.
Okay, so watch for that later, because what you'll notice is a lot of times after whiffing up close, you tend to move forward, and it gets you hit a lot. And you'll see it on the next stock. So let's keep watching. Also, let's talk about this. So these ideas are going to add up, because a lot of them are repetitive. So look at this last back air you do. Do you see that that back air was kind of pointless?
Yeah.
Or is that not clear to you?
There was no way he was going to move forward quick enough to be able to get hit by that back air.
Exactly. So why do you think you did it? Let's talk about...
Actually, no, I'm not quite sure. I think if he had... It's unlikely, but if he had done a wave dash forward, I think he could have gone into it, but again, it's not very likely.
Let's look at the spacing, actually. Because at this spot, it sure would hit him. But look what he does. He's wave dashing back as you're dashing away.
Yeah, what I'm saying... Oh, so you're saying, like, react to the fact that he wave dashed back and then...
Just choose not to back air. Because that gives you a little more frame advantage, you know? Because you're doing quite a delayed back air, right? It's not like you're doing... So if you had to do an early aerial, there's no way you could feasibly react. But imagine when you input the back air. So check what's going on right before you input the back air, you know? So during your jump squat frames, let's say. So if I pause it during your jump squat frames, what do you think you would see?
Him.
So that's the question. So let's watch it. Yeah, exactly.
Or he'd probably just be in his jump squat by then. Yeah.
I actually think you might have been able to see. I'm not actually sure. We could check the YouTube video for very curious. But do you see?
I don't think I don't think I was reacting there. I think I was just putting up a wall as not necessarily not a read, because I wasn't really reading. I was just doing it to cover something. But
yeah,
it's not really something Peaches would do much. Like that back air then would catch like a wave dash in attempt from like a Fox or a...
Oh, I agree. Absolutely.
But against Peach, I think it was a bad back air.
Yeah, and I think the second one you did was fine, because it was a similar back air, but if you look at the spacing and the timing of it, let's watch again. So watch this carefully. Look at the second one. That made perfect sense, but then that third one, you know, I think
we're decent.
Okay, I went back. So you should be about to grab him. You miss your knee now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But yeah, so the second back air you do great. The third back air, even if Peach wave dashed forward, even then I don't feel... Because you are very, very spaced and you dashed quite far away. So you've heard me talk about reaction points probably from sitting in on lessons, or no? If not, it's fine. I'm just curious.
I probably have heard you talking about it, but I can't remember.
Okay, yeah, that's totally fine. I just wasn't sure how many lessons you sat in on. So I have this concept that I've kind of coined, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, but I call it a reaction point. And it's as simple as it sounds. It's a point in time that you're reacting. But the key here is that it's about making the decision to react as opposed to having this constant reaction. So, for example, if you do space bear, dash away, jump, do you see how during that dash away, you've already decided to jump at that range? So it's of no downside to you to check what he's doing as you make that decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's this concept in Melee that you're kind of trying to react in real time, but as you do it, there's no way you can humanly react on every single frame. So what you need to do is kind of chunk your reaction in such a way where once you've already decided to do the next thing, or once you're committed to something that puts you in lag, there's no reason not to check what's going on next. You know what I mean? So that's what I call a reaction point. And I would say that that's a classic example of you, even though it doesn't cost you anything, you could have maybe gotten more out of the situation. It's about information gathering. It's about, oh, I've already decided to do this based on the current game state. So I'm going to take in information about the next game state so I can make a better decision coming up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. And I think the more you can find ways to implement that in your gameplay, the better player you will become, because you will just be having more information and making better informed decisions. So maybe you could have just done something more useful than that back air, you know?
Anyway, after the back airs is an example of what I was talking about earlier, where I'm trying to stuff him in the air with...
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
So then let's talk about that. So let's look at the height he's floating at. So when do you notice that he got to that height, right? So I'll try to pause it at the right time. I might not get it, but I want you to envision this anyway. As you're playing neutral, I want you to watch Peach and watch how high she goes from her full hop, okay? So let's watch this. So right now, if he floated at, I have it paused at 7:12.96. Is that pretty close to you?
7:13.07. So yeah, pretty close.
Pretty close. So he's on his way up, right?
Yeah.
So what you need to do now is before you make your next decision, or as you make your next decision, one, consider the likelihood of him floating at each height, but then two, watch him carefully. So if we see, he actually ends up jumping above your nair height, and I don't think you really could have reacted to that.
I think I actually did react to the fact that he jumped, but then
I agree.
But then I read that he would do a like mid-height float.
Okay.
With
I agree.
dash
And
in short up there.
I think that identification process of figuring out what you reacted to versus what you were reading is very important. So I think you need to take that and apply it to everything. So you reacted to the jump, but you kind of made a big assumption that he would float at a particular height.
Yeah.
So I think, but then you think about risk reward and think about how you're drifting and the spacing you're challenging him at, and do you see that like the way this ends up, it's like you might lose your stock, but I don't think it was essential that you challenged him at that particular timing or spacing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So let's say you are closer to him. Maybe you could challenge him when he's on the way up, or before he gets the float directly above you, or maybe he doesn't have time to.
Maybe,
but, if he
maybe it's possible you can challenge both. Well, not. Maybe it's possible you can challenge a lot of his options with a dash forward, short hop, up air.
Yeah, definitely. But then if he stays grounded, you have to ask yourself, what range am I at? Is it worth whiffing this, etc., right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you definitely could do that. Or maybe if you were closer in the first place, the nair actually would have been served a fine function to cover both,
Yeah.
Because you stop him before he jumps. And up air can do it as he jumps, so those are maybe some differences. Or you could think to yourself, let's say he does do a mid-height float. You don't really need to catch him at the beginning of it, because I think Falcon's nair is so safe versus the mid-height float approach anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, if you just do kind of a more zoning nair, then even if he floats at the mid-height, he won't be able to challenge you afterward. You might not get the hit, but he certainly won't hit you, and he'll still be in a bad situation. Do you get what I'm saying?
Like,
so
if you so are you saying, like, if you
didn't need to be as aggressive with it, essentially.
If you don't commit, then when you see him do the mid-height float, you can still throw out spaced or contesting nair, since...
Yeah. And now, I would say the nair you did contested him harder than what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, but it's more risky.
Exactly. So what you want to take into account is this concept that I described, and this is another term I've just been using. I call it confidence level. And essentially, it's that
I've been doing confidence levels in statistics, so...
Oh, I mean, that's actually very funny. I think it's quite similar as a concept. I have a CS background, so I'm a little bit familiar. I call it confidence level in fighting games, though, and essentially, it's not quite the exact same.
Yeah.
But what you want to do is, when you make a decision, you want to assess for yourself how confident you are in it, because normally, when you assess risk-reward, what do you assess? You assess matchup, percent, stage position, etc. And something I think is the very human element of fighting games that people don't talk about is the difference between me and you is we can be in the exact same situation and make a different decision because of how confident we are and what our opponent is about to do. So let's say you were 100% sure he was going to do the mid-height float. I would say your nair was a great option, If you could theoretically be 100% sure, there's no risk to that, right?
Mm.
But let's say you're 90% sure. Maybe it's still a good option. Maybe once you start getting down to 80% sure, 70% sure, maybe it's not really worth the risk reward. So do you see how that's kind of, you need to weight that into your decision-making process?
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm suggesting maybe a less committal nair because I think that would have covered the float fine. Maybe you wouldn't have guaranteed contested him unless he moved forward. But if he didn't move forward, you're still in a good position. And then if he does the higher float, you're at least still safe. And based on the risk reward and based on, having zero information about his style, at least I have no information, and also knowing the Peach matchup, I personally wouldn't have done that. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But now, let's say you went into that and you were very confident in what he was going to do. I wouldn't tell you that you made the wrong decision. I'd say, that makes perfect sense. You were confident. Just be aware of the other possibilities,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, cool. So do you feel like that was a useful topic to talk about?
Yeah, that was actually really, really good.
Okay, I'm glad. So you see, hopefully, that all these ideas I'm talking about, I'm taking small things you're doing wrong, and if I see you make... Oh, that's why I watched for like 2 minutes. If I see you make the error multiple times, that gives me a good reason to go back and talk about it, because it suggests that there's something about your view of the game that we can discuss and that hopefully you can improve. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's keep going. I actually want to watch this interaction. So watch when you get back what happens. You ledge dashed and you ran forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get hit. So now, again, I wouldn't say that was inherently that bad an option. But do you remember that knee you whiffed, where you whiffed the knee and ran forward and got hit?
Yeah.
So now this makes 2 times where you kind of whiffed something and then just ran forward at him, right? And what you'll see is actually on your next stock when you respawn, a large part of the damage you take is from very similar things. So I want to continue for now, but I want you to watch for that, okay?
What do you mean by the whiff something then dash forward? Surely
I mean,
a ledge dash.
Very literally. I mean, very literally. Oh, okay. I guess ledge dashing wasn't a whiff, but I guess like you landed near him while you were in lag is what I should have said.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I should say you are in lag and near him, and you are choosing to move forward.
So
Okay.
do you think I should have seen that he was close by and maybe considered using a different option like dash back or shield or roll?
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think the dash forward is inherently bad. The only reason I talked about it is because if we keep watching, you're going to see a trend where you tend to dash forward while after being in lag, and it ends up getting you hit in a lot of situations where I think it was avoidable. So, there's obviously the concept of mix-ups. There's not something you just should have done every time in that case. Yeah. But I think it's telling that you seem to trend towards the dash forward, and it also tends to get you hit.
Okay.
So that'll happen in a bit, though. We can ignore it for now. But you get this weak reverse up air, and I'm actually very surprised you didn't try to confirm it into knee. So watch this right here. Did you see that?
I think it's because I committed to lag afterwards. I think I did, if I rewatch it, I think I did a wave dash afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
So why did you do that, do you think? Let's talk about it.
Actually, I've historically been very bad at hit confirming, and I actually improved upon it, where after aerials I would dash forward and then hit confirm from there, depending on whatnot. But maybe it's a possibility that this is maybe just like a situation that I haven't practiced with my new hit confirming ideas, and so I'm just falling back on what I used to do, which was just aerial dash wave dash, which puts me in too much lag to be able to confirm.
Absolutely. So let's talk about hit confirming then. I like the idea that you dash forward, but an issue here is if you always dash forward, that might not be relevant to the situation. So let's take a step back and talk about situational recognition. So a big part of hit confirming is processing the current game state and then just simply knowing what will happen next. Do you get what I mean?
Could you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So watch this up air you did. And given where he is and your up air, I want you to tell me if you could have known that it was going to hit or not.
Yeah, that would have hit.
Do you think once he air dodged at that spot and did the drift he did and you did the up air you did, was there any influence he could have done to avoid that up air or no?
No.
Okay, and are you confident about that? I'm honestly asking, like, what do you think?
I think I should have actually up aired with more drift to the right, as maybe if he had held fully right, then he could have avoided it.
Okay. But conceptually, you see that you had the right idea, and maybe you up aired a little wrong, and he didn't play the air dodge perfectly. But
yeah,
you see that watching it, it certainly feels like that was what was going to happen, right?
Yeah. I definitely knew that. I definitely, in this case, knew that up air was going to connect.
Yeah, you certainly expected it to connect, right?
Yeah.
Based on the game. So I think a big part of hit confirming, and this is true about not hit confirming, it's true about melee in general, but it's not that you need to reactively hit confirm, because that's very difficult. You can't just see the up air hit and then go. What you need to do is know that based on the game state, what you are doing will work. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So that way, you could have instantly, as soon as you did that up air and you saw his... So what you do is you set a reaction point, going back to what I said. You do that up air, and while you're doing it, you check what Peach does. And from the moment you do that up air, you should immediately be able to determine how guaranteed that up air is to hit. Does that make sense?
Surely you could, like, along the lines of what you're saying, surely you could, like, see their position relative to you, like, a few frames before the hitbox is going to connect.
Absolutely.
And then, because of that, plus the hit lag frames, plus your landing lag. Yeah.
Yep. I agree strongly.
By the time that you're actionable, you should have reacted to the fact that they were definitely going to get hit.
Yeah, absolutely. But now, of course, the scales based on the situation, based on the lag of the move, based on the startup of the move, based on how much influence they had on their position, you know? Like, what if they had enough influence on their position that you wouldn't know that something was going to happen until the frame before it hit, and you were also, like, one frame above the ground, and it was a low hit lag move? You know what I mean?
Then you'd have to commit to, like, the dash forward to give yourself more time.
You have to.
Yeah.
And, you know, this depends on the character, depends on the matchup, depends on the percent, because you might have to hit confirm earlier or later based on how much hit stun the move has. You know, there are a wide variety of factors. But this is the thought process I want you to get in the habit of this concept of, in Melee, you set reaction points, and then as you take in the game state, you don't play purely reactively. You have to make some, you just know things at that point, right?
Actually, yeah, this concept makes sense with what I currently do. Like, if you need the spacey tech in place in the corner, I don't really, like, dash forward after the knee, because I dash forward after the knee because I see the attack in place and I know that the knee is going to hit.
You already know the knee is hitting, so you start the dash and then confirm the DI as you dash.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this applies to situations you're familiar with. But really, it doesn't just apply to that. It applies to this up air, but then it also applies to neutral game. It applies to everything, where as you gain more information, you can understand the game state better and better to inform your decisions. And sometimes it reaches the point where you know enough about the game state that you know exactly what's going to happen. And for example, we call those combos, right? Where once you're comboing someone, you have no problem confirming up air into up air usually, right? But it's actually just combos and reactively comboing are just an extension of hit confirming, which is just an extension of neutral. It's all really the same concept of you react, you take in the game state, and then based on how sure you are of what will happen next, you can make your next decision, right?
Yeah.
So that is a very large generalization, but you can apply that thought process to anything. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I think that's why you might have missed that hit confirm. But I actually think that kind of goes back also to the situation where you shielded the get-up attack and you weren't sure what to do. These are all kind of related in the sense that maybe it relates to your confidence in what is about to happen next, in terms of not just confidence levels, but more importantly, like I'm talking about just taking in the information from the game state and being confident in what you know will happen. I'm not talking about confidence levels. It's just funny that I'm using the word confident. Yeah, I could just say how sure you are. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that up air hit confirm miss and the shielding the get-up attack and not getting it. Perhaps it was a similar concept because maybe you weren't confident in what would happen based on what you were inputting and based on what he was inputting. Make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why I pointed it out, because I noticed kind of a similar trend where you need to know what will happen next. Otherwise, it's very hard to, make your next decision. Similar thing here. Did you see his jab stuff your jump? This is, funnily enough, similar to what we talked about, even though it's only happened once. Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it.
So what do you think of that? Let's look. He rolls, but what happened when he rolled? You whiffed the back air. So maybe you didn't assess your frame advantage well enough after this roll. So let's watch. Look how much lag the back air has. Watch his roll whiff. And you can kind of visualize in your head. You can watch it 10 times if you need to kind of... Well, one, you could count the frames on YouTube and compare it to your own internalized concept of how much frame advantage you have. And, if that doesn't match up, then you want to watch that over and over until you can properly visualize in your head how much frame advantage you have when you whiff that bear and he rolls. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
that is a kind of an exercise you can go through. How about I'll go through it once just now, just for the sake of having done it. So I'm going to click this video. I'm going to go to YouTube. You're familiar with the frame by frame on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
I figured you were, so don't need to explain it. But I'm going to pause it, and I have it paused at and you can do it too if you want. I have it paused at 6:58:64. How many frames of L cancel lag does Falcon's back air have?
I do not know off the top of my head.
Let's check real quick. So I'm going to check Falcon Melee frame data. Smashboards comes up. That's what I Google usually when I'm searching for frame data.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's scroll. I see that. Where's back air? Up air, back air. So back air seems to have 9 frames of L cancel lag. Okay, so that's useful for this. So I'm at 6:58:64. I'm gonna go. So it looks like you land on the ground. Oh, it's kind of hard to tell when you land. I think you've landed now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, that matches up perfectly. So based on the timing, so I'm at 6:58:46, and you are fully actionable. Are you following along, or are you just listening?
I'm just listening. It's fine.
Okay, that's totally fine. So you are actionable now, and I'm going to count the frames till the end of Peach's roll. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So Vanity Angel didn't act as fast as possible, but it looks like you were about plus 14 after that roll.
Okay.
So let's talk about that. Actually,
okay, I'm plus 14, so obviously that means I could punish with things like grab, but...
Okay, so let's talk about if that's reactable or not.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to ask.
Okay, and that's, an exercise I think you should really go through. And ask yourself, what if you set a reaction point while you input bear,
Yeah.
When does his roll start, So let me count these frames again. I will count as soon as he starts his roll. So I think you can react to the roll on the first frame he starts it pretty much, because you see the shield bubble pop up, and then it's a very unique animation once he starts his roll. Does that, because it almost looks like a dash, but he's shielding. So
that's fine.
So let's say, you react by frame 1 or 2. So I'm going to count, I think melee reaction time is in the realm of about 15 frames, by the way. Have you thought about that at all, or does that line up with what you think? Or not really?
From my testing, it depends.
Okay, that's fair.
Like, I can get 13 frame reactions to Firefox sometimes.
Okay, I cannot do that. My personal best is about 14.
Yeah. Well, it's just the audio and whatnot. It just...
Oh, the audio I mean purely visual.
Visual, yeah, I get around 14 frames on the Firefox.
Oh. So I get 14 on... have you seen the F Smash test Cardano does?
I've never done the F Smash stuff.
Okay, so I like it personally, and I could do 14 frames, and it seems to line up with my other information in the game. So it seems pretty accurate to me. I'm going to estimate about 15, though, for, just general things you're looking for, but nothing special. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So about 8 frames occur of the roll before you touch the ground. So we can add in the 9 L cancel frames. So if you reacted to the roll within maybe the first 2 to 3 frames of startup, you easily could have dashed JC grabbed him.
Yeah.
If you reacted a little bit later, it might have been tricky, but certainly doable.
I actually think I did react to the roll, but my option... It's kind
of dash jump nair.
Yeah, my option was dash jump.
Stomp.
It was probably stomp, because that's actually something I think that's actually something I do against Peach, where it's not good because that's not possible on reaction, but it's just something I do for some reason.
Yeah, I understand. So then we talk about this ties into the ideas we've been talking about. Reaction points. I actually think you reacted a little bit slowly watching it frame by frame, so maybe you weren't watching him very carefully. But, once you input the back air, why not just watch him perfectly? There's nothing else to do, right?
Yeah.
So this is the concept of reaction points, thinking about frame advantage, etc.
Actually,
go ahead.
I think I realized why I think I know why I do the stomp, which is because after I do my back air, I dash back preemptively, and then maybe I assume that it's too difficult because I'm already in my dash. It would be quite difficult to react and confirm a grab from there. So I react to their roll in with a jump, and then I try and put an aerial out over them, which obviously they're going to be able to get their shield out on time or stuff me with a jab. But I think that's the reason why I started doing it, at least.
That makes sense. I think one thing to note, though, here is that you didn't actually back air his shield. Did you notice that?
I think, yeah, I probably back aired him before.
Watch, you actually back aired, and the back air missed. So actually, this is slightly different than like back airing his shield, dashing away on reaction, and then reacting from there. This is more like as you were bearing, he already rolled out of the way. So had he shielded, maybe I would suggest you do something different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't think I was reacting, though. I think I just dashed away, assuming he would have shielded it.
Yeah, I understand. But maybe that's something you can start looking for and thinking about, is as you back air, you should notice that the back air didn't even connect because he started his roll. So this is actually twofold. One, you should have noticed he was rolling, and then once you saw the roll, you could have known that the back air wasn't connected. But even outside of that, you should be able to react because of the hit lag to whether the back air hits his shield or not.
Yeah.
Cool.
But then if he doesn't shield, then I don't have the hit lag. Oh yeah, that's also why I think I started the dash late, is because my dash was for the timing of hitting
The shield.
Yeah.
Which is why you need, this goes back to the concept we talked about when hit confirming. You need to take in the game state so you set reaction points, take in the game state, and then you should know what's going to happen or what could happen. So as you did that back air, you should have already known that he wasn't shielding.
Yeah.
Make sense?
I'm not sure of how reactable that would be, though.
Well, let's watch it. Tell me what you think when it comes up.
I personally don't think that I could have reacted to the fact that he didn't shield.
Hit his shield? Really? So you were the one talking about hit lag, right? If you back air on someone's shield, how much hit lag do you think it is?
Oh, wait. So you mean, like, when you back air, don't dash preemptively, dash when you see the
yeah. Like,
so then if they don't shield,
shield,
then you could just react to the roll in or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you need to be reacting to. So I wouldn't do a versus shield option if I didn't hit their shield first.
Yeah.
So I have a plan for if I don't hit their shield. I have a plan for if I do hit their shield.
Yeah.
And those are. Yeah, exactly. It's not like you can react to everything perfectly. It's like step by step. As you back air, you check. You see that he's rolling, you don't even need to worry about it. But if somehow he got his shield up, you have time to confirm that he's shielded and then pick your option.
So in your concept of reaction points, like as I'm putting out my back air, I see what he's doing then.
Yes, exactly.
Or would you do it when the back air comes out? Because if
I would say from the moment you decide to do the back air.
Okay. But what if they roll before, like between the moment you decide to do back air and the moment back air comes out?
So if they roll as you're deciding to do the bear?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about it then. Let's watch. I feel like that's roughly what happened here. Let's watch this. I would say that's almost exactly what happened. That he rolled right when you start, because like, look, he was doing a get up. He couldn't have really. Like, he rolled as soon as possible after that get-up. Do you see that? Yeah, so I don't really think there's anything else that you needed to be looking for. But I think what you're presenting is actually interesting, because this goes back to the concept of setting good reaction points. Because I agree that something could happen during your unreactable window. But then that goes back to, you should be setting reaction points that you feel are most relevant to the situations. So when you make your decision, you should already be convinced, based on everything I know, up till the point I'm deciding to back air, this back air is a good decision. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, but just so I can get this clear, shouldn't the reaction point for this position be like when your back air actually would connect with their shield?
Well, you need multiple reaction points. See, that's the thing. It's not there's only one. You need to react as you're inputting back air so that you know what's happening. And then if their back air connects on their shield, that's like another time you're checking, Like, This isn't like you check one time every second. This is like you check maybe 10 times a second. The better you get, the more you're going to be the more you look for things. Do you follow me?
Yeah, just to clarify. So so my back air, when it comes out, by the time that it comes out, if it did not hit their shield, if they rolled in or whatever, then I could just simply react from there. Like, just if they rolled in, I could just react to the frame one of their roll and then grab it on reaction.
Absolutely. After
I've been standing around for a bit in wait or whatever. But then if they did shield, then I'd be stuck in hit lag, so I'd react. I'd have reacted by the time I'm actionable to the fact that I did hit their shield, and then I can start up a corner pressure situation from that.
Absolutely. And also, so that's, I think, as clear as it could possibly be. You said that perfectly. But also, we can take into account the game state before all of this. What's she doing? You can tell she's doing a neutral stand-up, right? Watch this. So if she's doing a neutral stand-up, there's literally only, like, 3 possibilities here. The back air hits her, she shields it, or she does spot dodge / roll, right?
Yeah.
So I think, again, that helps is that the options are already very limited. There's only, as far as I can tell, there are only 4 possible outcomes once you know she does a neutral get-up.
Yeah.
And also, based on how you timed your back air, if you're very good, you should even already know whether the back air could hit him or not, or whether he's going to be invincible when your back air comes out because you timed it wrong or something. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So essentially, you have all these things you already know that makes the reaction actually quite simple. It's very hard to react when there's a million things going on, but the more information you know, the easier you can narrow it down to just one or two things you're looking for. So being good at paying attention and reacting and seeing what's happening on the screen isn't purely a product of being aware and reacting. It's also knowing, like, aware of what could be happening now. You know the positions you're in, the game state you're in. Make sense?
Yeah.
So a lot of people fail to react, not just because they're not trying to react, but because they don't even narrow down options properly. Cool. So let's continue. I feel like that's a very important concept, though, so I'm glad we spent the time on it. And you can start applying this to all aspects of your gameplay, really. So let's talk about why you got hit by that fair, for example. So you dash dance around the turnip quite well. So you're about to dash backwards, right?
I actually like changed my decision towards the end there. Something like, I struggle with this situation where Peach goes off stage with a turnip and then comes back on between stocks. I've seen Wizzy sometimes do, like, he'll jump up, he'll double jump, and then first hit Nair while rising the turnip, and then he'll fall down on the Peach with the second hit of Nair.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I think that's what I was going for, because I did that instant double jump. And then I saw that he wasn't going to throw the turnip in time, so I put myself in a bad situation. So I drifted back, and then I barely managed to
dodge it.
Barely managed to dodge it, and then
which is fine. I like and I liked that you dodged it. That was good. But look, once you dodged it, look what you did. You jumped back in. It looks like you were even kneeing to me. So let's talk about, once you dodged this turnip, why do you think you went back in? What's the thought process? So watch it again.
I don't know. I didn't start an instant aerial, and the only way I see this beating that fair is if I did, like, an instant up air, maybe even space.
I agree. So maybe if you did instant up air, that could have worked. I think he could have even come down earlier and beaten an instant up air, but then that has its own downsides. But at the timing he came down, I agree instant up air would have worked. But you see, what you did just essentially had no chance of really being good there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So again, you have to ask yourself, it's the process. You know it's bad, so recognize the situation leading up to it. You dodge the turnip, check the float height, ask yourself what you're thinking in that situation, why you did that, why it's bad, and then think about what you could do instead. Make sense?
Yeah.
So you need to go through that full thought process.
I mean, that is basically what I do at the moment.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Make sure you have all those steps, though. Recognizing everything leading up to it so you can adjust your thought process is, like, the big key. And I think most people fail to do that. And if you already do that, that's great. But do you see how effectively what this goes back to is you kind of moved forward after dashing out of the way and you ran into a hitbox? Yeah. So this kind of goes back to the other thing. Let's keep watching.
Again, like I was talking about there, he rolls away after...
I saw that, yeah.
I have started to punish it, but at the time I had not really considered it.
That makes sense. So let's look at this next situation. So you're about to whiff grab as he gets up, okay? And I want you to look at what you do afterwards.
Can I see how he was knocked down, actually?
Yeah, sure. I think it was an up air, possibly.
Okay.
So I think he crouched an up air. So what happens after this whiff grab?
I wasn't paying attention to that. I was looking at something else.
It's okay. Pay attention to that whiff grab.
Yeah, I dashed back in.
Yep. So now it's debatable whether or not you had time for that, and we could talk about that all day if we wanted. But the important part is, again, I've noticed you whiffed something, whatever it is. You dashed in and you got hit, and then look at the next thing. You dash forward after getting back aired and get hit again. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
So that's actually really important to talk about. So let's watch it again. Look at the second time you dash forward. So, and look, you even dash and jump into this next nair he does. So, why do you think this is all happening? So watch it one more time. It happens 3 times here. You get bared, nared, and then nared again. So here's the back air, the nair, and you run into the mid-height nair. So talk to me about that. What do you think of that?
For the second one after the grab, it seemed like I could dash under him.
Okay. Even watching it now, you still think you could have, or are you saying that you thought that at the time and it was
at the moment it seems like I could have dashed, or it was very close to rather. But
that makes sense.
But I'm not entirely sure on the third one, especially. I know I crouched after my wake up because I'm at a percent where if you did like a nair or a back air, I could have crouched. Not true crouch cancel punish, but even if you did a down smash, you can grab them before that comes out.
Yeah.
But
I don't think the crouch was bad at all.
Yeah.
It's just so let's go back and talk. So first of all, you saw how after you whiffed the first grab, you ran towards him and just got hit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think consistently you've done this thing where you whiff and then run into a peach hitbox. So we don't have too much time left. So I want you to think for yourself. It seems like you're already good at the thought process, but think about what could make you do that and how you can adjust that thought process. It just seems like you don't have a good concept of I guess I can't tell if it's you don't think she's going to throw something out or if you don't realize that she has time to throw something out, but you're kind of putting yourself in her range to throw out a move. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then the second one, this goes back to what I was telling you about visualizing. You can watch that situation over and over and then visualize yourself running under and decide for yourself whether or not you could have done it, and then start adjusting your understanding of it based on that visualization. Watch it over and over and see, okay, if Peach falls at this speed and I dash at this speed, this is how it ends up happening. And that's a very good way to improve that situation.
The only possible reason I could think of is that I have a habit of always starting my dash dances or whatever forward, but I can't really think of any other reason why I'm dashing forward or in most of those situations.
Okay.
Especially the third one after the crouch.
Well, it could be a number of things, and I'm not really sure, but again, just think about why, and if you're really not sure, then just start recognizing the situations where you do it when you play, and start coming up with alternatives, that type of concept. I think the visualization thing is very, very useful, though, because, Melee, all these decisions are just based on understanding Melee's physics engine. So if you don't understand it properly, you can't make the right decision. So watching something happen over and over until you can visualize in your head, this is Falcon's dash speed, this is Peach's fall speed, and this is how they interact, that type of thing is very useful. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's wrap up then. It's 4:30 for me. I've got to get going. But were you fairly happy with that?
Yeah, it was good.
Okay, I'm glad. So you don't want to do any more lessons this month, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just message me at some point, and we'll talk about. I'll refund your other 2 lessons, but otherwise, keep in touch. Let me know if you have any questions. I did enjoy talking to you, and whenever you want to take more lessons in the future, just let me know.
Sounds good.
Okay. Awesome. Good talking to you, and have a great night.
See ya.